I will research this thoroughly before writing, since the script needs to contain legitimate, verifiable information. Let me find the quantified savings data from real-time feedback studies. Now, let me verify the technical mechanism, deceleration fuel cutoff, and engine efficiency under load. On March 6, 2025, about an hour before I normally lock up, a dark gray sedan pulled into my bay with a driver who was already shaking his head before he even put it in park. He was not angry. He was defeated. He slid a stack of gas receipts across my workbench as if he were turning in evidence. Something was eating his fuel, he said. No check engine light. The car drives fine. But he was spending $40 more a month than he did last year. And 3 mechanics told him they could not find anything wrong. Today, I am going to show you why he was right that something changed, why every mechanic was right that nothing was broken, and how a feature already built into his dashboard, one he had never touched in 4 years of ownership, fixed his problem in a single drive without a wrench, without a part, and without a dollar spent. I have seen this exact scenario more times than I can count. A driver convinced their car is silently failing, when in reality the car is doing exactly what it is told. The problem is not under the hood. The problem is that almost nobody was ever taught to read the one screen that tells them, in real time, exactly how much fuel they are burning every single second. I pulled this man's car onto the lift, ran a full diagnostic, checked his fuel trims, his oxygen sensors, and his injectors. Everything was healthy. Then I sat in the driver's seat, clicked through his trip computer twice, and landed on a screen he swore he had never seen before. A live number. Miles per gallon, updating instantly as the engine breathed. I asked him to drive around the block with me while I watched it. Within 2 minutes, he understood his entire problem. He was not burning fuel because his car was sick. He was burning fuel because of how he drove, and he had no idea, because he had never once looked at the gouge designed to show him. Here's the uncomfortable truth almost nobody talks about. The single biggest variable in your fuel economy is not your spark plugs, not your air filter, not the brand of gas you buy. It is your right foot. And the car already knows this. It has been keeping score the entire time on a display that the overwhelming majority of drivers have never deliberately used. Surveys and industry data suggest the vast majority of drivers either do not know their instant fuel economy display exists or have never used it to actually change how they drive. They glance past it. They leave it set to a clock or an odometer. They treat it as a gimmick, and in doing so, they throw away the most powerful free fuel-saving tool ever installed in a passenger vehicle. I have been working on cars for over 2 decades, and I will tell you something that took me years to fully appreciate. Modern engines are not the crude fuel burners people imagine. They are precision instruments managed by a computer making hundreds of decisions per second. That computer knows, at every instant, exactly how many milligrams of fuel it is injecting and exactly how fast you are traveling. From those 2 numbers, it calculates your instantaneous fuel economy and puts it right on your dash. Most cars built in roughly the last 15 to 20 years have this. Hybrids, trucks, economy sedans, luxury cars. It is almost universal now, and almost nobody uses it. Why does that matter so much? Because what you cannot measure, you cannot manage. Think about how blindly most people drive. You press the accelerator, the car moves, you arrive. You have no live feedback connecting the pressure of your foot to the money leaving your wallet. It is like trying to lose weight with no scale, no mirror, and no way to know if anything you are doing is working. The instant fuel economy display closes that loop. Suddenly you can see in real time that flooring it from a stoplight drops you to single-digit miles per gallon, while easing into the same acceleration keeps you double or triple that. You can see that the engine is gulping fuel during hard acceleration and sipping it during a steady cruise. The gauge turns an invisible cost into a visible one, and the moment a cost becomes visible, human behavior changes automatically. This isn't a theory I'm selling you. It's one of the most studied effects in the entire field of driving research. A 2018 study from the UC Davis Institute of Transportation Studies found that giving drivers instantaneous in-vehicle feedback improved their fuel economy by an average of about 6.6%. A later meta-analysis pulling together 17 separate studies landed on almost exactly the same number, around a 6.6% improvement, with the strongest results coming from systems that showed both the instant reading and the running average together. Broader eco-driving research, where drivers actually adjust their habits around this feedback, has shown fuel savings climbing as high as 15%. Think about what that means. Without changing your car, your route, your fuel, or your maintenance, simply watching a gauge you already own can cut your fuel bill by 6 to 15%. For most drivers, that's hundreds of dollars a year recovered from a number they were ignoring. But here's where it gets genuinely fascinating, and where my customer's jaw actually dropped. There is a hidden behavior built into nearly every modern fuel-injected car that the instant display reveals like a magic trick, and once you see it, you can never unsee it. It's called deceleration fuel cutoff, or DFCO. Here's how it works. When you're rolling forward in gear and you take your foot completely off the accelerator, the car's momentum is now spinning the engine through the wheels. The engine does not need to fire to keep turning. So the computer does something remarkable. It shuts the fuel injectors off entirely, not reduces them, shuts them off. For those seconds you are moving down the road, the engine is turning, and you are using exactly zero fuel. This feature has been standard in most cars built in the last 25 to 30 years, and the overwhelming majority of drivers have used it thousands of times without ever knowing it existed. Watch your instant fuel economy display the next time you lift off the gas while still in gear and coast toward a red light. The number will shoot straight to the top, often pegging at 99 miles per gallon or displaying infinity, because the math of moving while burning nothing is effectively infinite. General Motors once stated that this single feature contributed up to roughly 11 to 17 extra miles of range per tank on their cruise models, just from those moments of coasting in gear. That's free range, built into your car, that you collect every time you anticipate a stop and let off the accelerator early instead of staying on the gas until the last second and stomping the brakes. Now contrast that with the opposite extreme that the gauge also exposes: idling. When you sit at a long light or warm the car up in the driveway, your instant fuel economy reads 0 miles per gallon, not low. 0. Because you are burning fuel while traveling no distance whatsoever. The gauge makes visible something drivers never feel: that a car going nowhere with the engine running is the single most waste state it can be in. Once you've watched that needle sit at 0 during a 2-minute idle, you start to understand idling very differently. So here's the picture the display paints second by second that the average driver never sees. Hard acceleration, single digits, the engine drinking fuel. Steady cruising at a constant speed, a healthy, high number. Coasting in gear toward a stop, effectively infinite, 0 fuel burned. Idling, 0 miles per gallon, pure waste. The entire economics of driving laid out in front of you in real time. And the simple act of trying to keep that number high, treating it almost like a video game score, naturally pushes you into every fuel-saving habit at once. You accelerate gently. You anticipate stops and coast instead of braking late. You hold steady speeds. You stop idling needlessly. You do not have to memorize a list of eco-driving rules because the gauge teaches them to you through instant feedback, the same way a thermostat teaches you about temperature. So why has almost nobody been shown this? Why do dealerships hand you the keys without a word about the most effective fuel tool in the car? Part of it is simple. A salesperson is trained to talk about touchscreens, heated seats, and horsepower, not to teach you to drive in a way that uses less of the fuel they have no stake in. Part of it is that the feature is not dramatic. It does not blink or beep or demand attention. It just sits there, quietly keeping score, waiting for someone to look. And part of it, frankly, is that an informed driver is harder to upsell. A person who understands that their rising fuel costs came from a heavier foot during a stressful year, not a failing engine, is a person who does not authorize a $400 diagnostic hunt for a problem that was never mechanical. My customer had already been quoted for fuel system cleanings and sensor replacements by other shops. Every one of those would have been money spent chasing a ghost, because the real cause was sitting on a screen he had never clicked to. Now let me be honest with you, the same way I am honest in my shop, because this gauge is not magic and I will not pretend it is. The instant fuel economy display tells you how you are driving. It does not fix a car that is genuinely broken. If your fuel economy collapsed suddenly and dramatically, if it dropped 30 or 40% over a couple of weeks while you were driving exactly the same way you always have, that is not a right foot problem, and no gauge watching will save you. That is the signature of a real fault, a failing oxygen sensor, a dragging brake, a clogging catalytic converter, low tire pressure, or a sticking thermostat keeping the engine cold. The display actually helps you tell the difference. If you start driving gently, anticipating stops, holding steady speeds, and the number climbs to where it should be, your problem was behavioral and you just fixed it for free. If you do all of that and the number stays stubbornly low, you have now confirmed something real is wrong, and you can walk into a shop with confidence instead of confusion, knowing you are paying for an actual repair and not a guess. That distinction is everything. Instead of reacting to a stack of gas receipts with fear, you are testing. Instead of assuming the worst, you are verifying. That is exactly how a good technician thinks, and now it is how you can think too, using a tool you already paid for and never opened. There's one more thing I want you to understand, because it's where this all comes together. Using the instant display isn't about staring at it and driving distracted. That's not the point, and it's not safe. The point is to spend a few drives genuinely paying attention to it, learning what your habits cost, and then letting that knowledge sink into your muscle memory. After a week or two of glances, you'll find you no longer need to look. You'll feel the difference between a gentle launch and a wasteful one. You'll start lifting off the accelerator the instant you see a red light ahead, letting the car coast and burn nothing instead of charging up and braking hard. You'll stop idling out of habit. The gauge trains you, and then the training stays even when you're not looking. That's why the research keeps finding real, lasting savings. It's not the screen itself, it's what the screen teaches you to do. My customer drove home that evening, watching that number for the first time in 4 years. He texted me a week later. He had added nearly 4 miles per gallon to his average just by changing how he treated the accelerator and the brake. Nothing was replaced. Nothing was repaired. The car was never broken. He had simply been driving blind, like almost everyone does, past a tool sitting right in front of him the entire time. So before you blame your car, before you hand a shop your receipts and ask them to find what's wrong, do this first. Find your instant fuel economy display. It is in your trip computer menu, usually a button on the steering wheel or a stalk you click through. Set it where you can see it. Drive for a week and watch what your foot actually costs you. Accelerate like there is an egg under the pedal. Lift off early and let the car coast to your stops. Watch the number climb. You will learn more about your real fuel economy in 7 days than most drivers learn in 7 years of ownership, and you will likely never look at your gas bill the same way again. If this changed the way you see that little number on your dash, hit like so more drivers find it. Subscribe if you want weekly breakdowns that hand you control instead of fear. And drop a comment telling me what your car's instant display reads when you coast in gear toward a stop. I think the number is going to surprise you because the most expensive feature in your car isn't the one you have to pay for. It's the free one you never knew was there.